Before he was a dictator, Adolf Hitler was an artist. As a young man in Vienna, he dreamed of becoming a painter. Twice he applied to the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts, and twice he was rejected. Humiliated but obsessed with culture, Hitler spent years studying architecture, sculpture, and classical art. He admired the grand works of the Renaissance and despised what he called degenerate art, modernist, abstract, and expressionist styles that he believed polluted German culture. When he rose to power in 1933, his artistic ambitions returned, not through painting, but through control. He envisioned a cultural empire where art reflected the ideals of Nazi Germany: purity, order, and power. Under Hitler's rule, art became more than decoration. It became propaganda. Across occupied Europe, Nazi agents systematically looted museums, galleries, and private collections. Paris, Amsterdam, Warsaw, Vienna, no city was spared. Jewish families were targeted first. Their homes and art collections were confiscated under racial laws. Famous works by masters like Rembrandt, Raphael, Vermeer, and Botticelli were seized, catalogued, and shipped to Germany. The operation was massive, coordinated by the Einsatzstab Reichsleiter Rosenberg, or ERR, the Nazi task force for art confiscation. Every painting, every sculpture, every manuscript was carefully recorded, and the best of them, those deemed worthy of Hitler's new cultural vision, were reserved for his ultimate dream, the Führer Museum. Hitler planned to build his museum in his hometown of Linz, Austria, a colossal temple to art and Germanic culture. He personally selected pieces for it, poring over photographs of artworks late into the night. He called it My Museum. To fill it, the Nazis ransacked the collections of Europe's greatest galleries, the Louvre, the Rijksmuseum, and private estates of families like the Rothschilds. By 1943, trainloads of looted art were arriving in Germany and Austria. Some of the works went to Berlin, Munich, and Nuremberg, but Hitler's most prized pieces, his personal collection, were hidden in the Altaussee salt mine in the Austrian Alps. A natural fortress, the mine's deep tunnels offered perfect protection from bombing and theft. By 1945, over 6,500 paintings were stored there, including masterpieces by Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and Vermeer. It was the beating heart of Hitler's artistic empire. As Allied troops advanced into Germany, a special unit of soldiers began their own mission, not to destroy, but to save. They were the Monuments, Fine Arts and Archives program, a small group of art experts, museum curators and architects tasked with locating and recovering stolen art. They became known as the Monuments Men. Armed with maps, photographs, and little more than courage, they searched castles, bunkers, and mines across Europe. In May 1945, they reached the Altaussee mine. Inside, they found endless tunnels lined with crates, stacked floor to ceiling. When they pried them open, they saw treasures thought lost forever: the Ghent altarpiece, Michelangelo's Madonna of Bruges, hundreds of Renaissance masterpieces. But what they didn't find was Hitler's private cache, the works he had personally selected and which many believed had been moved before the war's end. As Allied forces closed in, high-ranking Nazi officials scrambled to hide their personal fortunes and collections. Some shipped valuables to neutral countries like Switzerland and Spain. Others buried crates in remote mountains or lakes. Rumors circulated that Hitler's personal art collection, separate from the Linz project, had been secretly transported out of Altaussee in early 1945. One story claimed that SS officers moved dozens of crates to nearby Lake Toplitz and Lake Grundlsee, sinking them to prevent capture. Another version suggested that selected works were sent by rail to southern Bavaria, destined for the Berghof, Hitler's mountain retreat near Berchtesgaden, When American forces arrived there, they found only fragments, sketches, ledgers, and photographs, but the main collection, thousands of catalogued works, was gone. What exactly was in Hitler's private collection? Surprisingly, much of it wasn't modern or avant-garde. It was classical. He favored German and Austrian painters of the 19th century, along with old masters like Titian and Rembrandt. He despised Picasso, Matisse, and Van Gogh, whom he labeled degenerate. Some reports suggest Hitler personally owned more than 5,000 artworks, acquired through purchase, confiscation, and forced trade. He displayed many in his offices and residences, especially at the Berghof. He once told his aides, "When I am gone, my art will speak for me." It was in his mind, his immortality, and so when the end came, the art vanished with him. In April 1945, Hitler retreated to the Führerbunker beneath Berlin. As Soviet forces closed in, he ordered his remaining treasures, art, documents and valuables, to be secured or destroyed. In his final will, he mentioned his art collection, directing that it be preserved for the Linz Museum after the war. But within days, Hitler was dead. When the Allies entered Berlin, they found only ashes, chaos, and fragments of what had once been a vast empire of stolen art. Across Europe, the hunt began, not only for Nazi leaders, but for the lost masterpieces of civilization. In the post-war years, investigators uncovered hundreds of storage sites across Germany and Austria. Caves, salt mines, monasteries, and even underground bunkers were found to contain caches of art. The Altersee mine alone yielded more than 15,000 artworks, but even as crates were catalogued and returned, gaps remained in the records. Entire sections of Hitler's personal catalogue, lists of paintings, sculptures and manuscripts were missing. Some were destroyed by fire, others were deliberately erased. In the 1950s, rumours spread of Nazi survivors trading stolen art on the black market to fund escape routes and hidden networks like Odessa, the so-called Nazi rat lines. Art became currency for survival, and Hitler's collection, it seemed, was scattered to the winds. During the Cold War, the search for lost Nazi art slowed, overshadowed by new political realities. Many of the storage sites fell behind the Iron Curtain in East Germany, Czechoslovakia, and Poland. Both Soviet and Western intelligence agencies were accused of secretly seizing looted art. The Soviets admitted to taking vast numbers of works as war reparations. Some of those pieces still reside in Russian museums today, labeled as trophy art. In the West, museums quietly returned recovered pieces to their original owners, but thousands of items remained unclaimed. And still, no definitive trace of Hitler's core collection was found. Then, in 2012, the world was stunned. German authorities raided a small apartment in Munich belonging to Cornelius Görlitz, the son of a Nazi-era art dealer named Hildebrand Görlitz. Inside, they discovered over 1,400 artworks, many of them thought to have been lost since the war. Among them were pieces by Chagall, Matisse, and Picasso. The discovery reignited global interest in the hunt for Nazi-looted art, and speculation that parts of Hitler's personal collection might still exist in private hands. Although most of Görlitz's collection appeared to be from confiscations rather than Hitler's private stash, the case proved one thing: the legacy of Nazi art theft was far from over. In recent decades, new expeditions have searched the Austrian Alps for lost Nazi art caches. Divers have explored lakes like Toplitz, Grundlsee, and Hallstatt. In 2015, Polish explorers claimed to have located a hidden train tunnel near Wolbrzych, said to contain Nazi gold and art, the legendary Nazi gold train. Despite international media attention, no verifiable treasure was found. Still, every few years, new rumors emerge. New claims of buried tunnels, sealed bunkers, or hidden vaults. For some, the hunt has become an obsession, and for others, it's a moral mission to recover stolen culture and restore it to the families who once owned it. The story of Hitler's lost art is not just about missing paintings, it is about justice. Each piece represents not only artistic value, but human suffering. For Jewish families robbed of their homes and heritage, restitution is a matter of identity and memory. International efforts continue today through organizations like the Provenance Research Project and the German Lost Art Foundation, which track down the ownership history of artworks worldwide. Some pieces have been returned, many more remain in dispute. Every recovered painting is a small victory, a fragment of humanity reclaimed from one of history's darkest eras. Even today, historians cannot agree on the fate of Hitler's personal art collection. Some believe it was destroyed in the chaos of 1945, burned in the Berghof, or buried beneath bombed bunkers. Others insist parts of it survived, hidden in Swiss vaults or scattered among private collections in South America and the United States. Occasionally, a painting surfaces at auction, its origins unclear, its history suspiciously blank during the 1940s. And with every discovery, the same question arises, could this be one of Hitler's missing masterpieces? So far, the answer remains elusive. Art was supposed to elevate humanity, to inspire and preserve our best qualities. But under the Third Reich, it was twisted into a tool of ideology and control. For Hitler, art was a reflection of power, and the power was everything. Yet in the end, all his conquests, all his treasures, all his visions of empire vanished into dust and rumor. What remains are the questions. Where did the art go? Who hides it still? And what does it say about us that we keep searching for it? Perhaps the greatest treasure left by this story is not the lost masterpieces themselves, but the lesson they carry that beauty can be stolen but never owned. That art survives dictators and endures beyond hate. The hunt for Hitler's lost art collection continues across archives, lakes, and borders. Each search brings us a little closer to the truth and reminds us of the fragile bond between culture and history. Somewhere, perhaps, hidden in a vault or buried beneath the mountains, a forgotten painting still waits not just to be found, but to be seen again. Until then, the legend endures, because as long as beauty has value, someone will always be searching for it in the shadows of the past.